I got a really interesting phone with me. This is not a new phone by any means. It's been out for a couple of months already. It's the ASUS ZenFone 3. Now, I've always said this, if a phone can have a really good camera, if it has good battery life and a good display, I would say that equates to about 50% of somebody's buying decision when they're looking to buy a phone. Mainly because those are really three important factors. Obviously there's others, but those three are really important. This phone really impressed me. I took it over to New York, and those are the main things that I really wanted to test out, was the camera, the battery life, and the display. So let's quickly go over some specs on this phone. This has a 5.5-inch display with a 1080p panel, which actually looks really great. It has an AMOLED panel, and viewing angles are actually outstanding. The other thing this phone has is a fingerprint reader on the back, and it's actually very fast. On the bottom, we have capacitive buttons, which I'm not a fan of, and I wish manufacturers would just stop using capacitive buttons. They don't even light up, so that's kind of a bummer. Not a deal breaker, but I wish they'd had software keys instead. We have a USB Type-C on the bottom with a 5,000 milliamp battery on the back. And speaking of the battery, this actually serves as a power bank. So it has this thing called reverse charging. So in case you have another phone or another device that needs charging, you can actually charge a device with this. So that's kind of cool. And again, we'll touch a little bit more on battery life later. The thing I really want to focus on, no pun intended, is the camera system. So I took this phone with me to New York and took some really good shots. And what really impressed me though is all of the different types of modes this thing has. So I'll kind of briefly go through them. You have portrait mode, manual mode, HDR Pro, beautification, super resolution, children, QR code, night, effect, selfie, GIF animation, panorama, miniature, time rewind, smart remove, all smiles, slow motion, and time lapse. That is a lot of modes. In fact, if I did a video on every single one, this video would probably be 30 minutes long. So we'll touch on some of my favorite ones. So let's go ahead and start off with manual mode. So obviously manual mode allows you to adjust the ISO, the white balance, the shutter speed, to basically give you full control of the image. So right now it's obviously overexposed, so I can go ahead and knock that down. Let me just go back here and knock this to maybe like 800, actually 400 or 800 would probably look the best. I can change the autofocus point, so right now it's on auto. If I need to focus somewhere near, close, infinity, or a macro shot, I can go ahead and do that. It's just got a lot of really great features that I like when manufacturers include this. So the other camera mode is HDR Pro, which essentially is a little bit better than HDR, because what it does is it takes an image which is overexposed and it lowers the brightness, and then on the shadows, it actually increases it by 400%. So behind me is the sky, which is essentially overexposed, and then we have a lot of shadows here, and I'm gonna go ahead and take a picture and show you how that works. I'm actually really impressed at how well automatic works. Watch, go ahead and come here, I'm gonna show you this shot. So check this out. Obviously there's a sun in the background, you have that overexposed sun, you have all these shadows, everything's on automatic, you have HDR auto, which actually works really well. I'm gonna go ahead and take this picture so you guys can go ahead and see. So everything is literally set on auto, and this looks great to me. So this next mode is called Super Resolution. Now, what it does is it actually takes 4 pictures at 12 megapixels each, and then what it does is it combines them together, it stitches them to create a 48 megapixel high-res image, which actually looks really good. Now this phone does have 2 cameras, one at a standard focal length and the other one at a 2.3 times zoom, which is equivalent to a 59mm focal length. You can also digitally zoom in 12 times, and this also has a portrait mode similar to iPhone, which can be a hit or miss. So it's nighttime, and this is supposed to be really good in low light because it has an f1.7 aperture. So we're gonna go ahead and test it out and see how it does. You know, I really like this camera. I love the low light capabilities. It's actually really good. So as you guys can see, the camera on this guy is really good. Now, is this the best camera of an Android phone? Obviously not, but you gotta understand, this is only 300 bucks, or you can pick this up for 300 bucks, which I think rivals even phones that are even more expensive than this. Now, in terms of battery life, this is one area where I actually thought Carlos was trolling me and he kept charging my phone. In fact, I even had to research it because I was getting 2 days battery life with this guy, and it turns out, according to Tom's Hardware, this is the best Android phone with the longest lasting battery. So for what it's worth, if you want a phone that's gonna last you a long time, this guy is gonna be it. Now, the other thing about this phone that I want to talk about is its display. The display on this guy is actually really good. It's a 1080p panel, but for this given size, I think it works. It looks great playing video games, consuming content. Even when you take pictures and review them and upload them to Instagram, everything looks solid. So, is this the phone to get for 300 bucks? Well, it depends. It has a lot of great features, a lot of stuff that I think a lot of people are looking for. There are a couple quirks. Obviously, this has capacitive buttons, which personally for me, I am not a fan of. And the fact that they don't light up, which I've said before, is something I don't like. But if that doesn't bother you, if the other little quirks, you know, like the software, that's another thing I didn't touch on, but the software itself, like ASUS underlying software, is kind of quirky in my opinion. It just, I don't know, it just reminds me like of an old iOS or an old iPhone. So if those little things don't bother you, this is actually a solid phone. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, let me know if you guys want me to do a full review, which will take a while, on this guy. Follow me on Snapchat, Instagram stories at MondoBytes if you guys want to see behind the scenes. Thanks again for watching, and you will catch me in the next one. Adios.